Good afternoon. This panel analyzes the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement and its impact around the world with a focus on the United States. The panelists will examine its similarities and differences with the civil rights movement and discuss the prospects for the movement. Our panelists today are Mrs. Ariana White Smith, a senior mechanical engineering major, Ms. Kennedy Grace Jackson, a freshman political science major, Dr. John Tillman, associate professor of history, Dr. Vivian Carter, chair of the Department of Psychology and Sociology, and I am the moderator, Kelly Samuels, associate vice president and SAC-COC liaison. So let's proceed with the impact around the world in regards to Black Lives Matters. I know we have two of our students, Mrs. Ariana White Smith and Miss Kennedy Grace Jackson, who are actually founders of their local chapters of Black Lives Matters. So I guess one of the first questions would be, found, found what made you become a founder of a Black Lives Matters chapter in your local areas?
Ariana, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'll go first. My name is Ariana White Smith. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, where we have over 96 families who lost a family member to police brutality, and I just happen to be one of those families. So, what drives me to get more involved in this movement is just that. My cousin's name is Luke Orlando Stewart. On March 13th of 2019, he was murdered by a Euclid police officer. He was in his car at around 6 a.m. and a local resident reported the car as suspicious. So, I'm sorry. So, like I said, Luke was in his car, asleep at 6 a.m., and a local resident reported the car as suspicious. When the police responded to the call, Luke woke up to the first words he heard was, "We got to pull him out the car," while he was asleep. So you're talking, these police officers responded already hostile with the intent of performing excessive force. So you're talking less than 51 seconds go by, Luke was shot 5 times, one in the hands with his open palm like this. So you're saying Luke was trying to defend himself and shield himself. Luke was also shot in the neck and in the chest. Luke was 23 years old. He left behind 2 sons, one 4, one 5. Luke died in fear of his life. Unarmed, no way in which he was performing any harm to anyone around him. And he was tasered, he was beat, all in a matter of minutes, and his life was taken. So what drives me and what keeps me on this is that this has to stop. And it's not just me that's going through this. As a family, we found out on the news. We weren't notified or anything. There was a lot of pushback and a lot of leading on to figure this out. So I would say my motivation is just, I don't want anybody else to feel how I've ever felt.
Okay, I'll go next. So again, my name is Grace Jackson. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. And I would say that my introduction to the Black Lives Matter movement happened around 6th grade. So I went to a predominantly white school, a predominantly white K through 12 school that was founded as a segregation academy in Montgomery, Alabama. And inside of the school, you could kind of see how its roots were working and how it systematically was not made for Black kids to be their full selves. So within that, I experienced covert and overt racism, like timelessly. And then around 6th grade, Trayvon Martin died. And I was very into like news and current events. And when around that time, I got to speaking up through social media. Every time a police brutality victim would happen, I would post about it, I would speak about it, I would talk about it all around school. So that would create problems and tension between me and my classmates, and it kind of just grew from there. So from there, I made clubs. I made a club at my high school. I led the Black History Month Assembly since 10th grade, and eventually, around the time George Floyd died, I led a protest in Montgomery, Alabama, and that was like my official stepping out towards it.
We often hear about, when you say a lot of in the political environment that we're in now, we often hear the often contrast to Black Lives Matter. You often hear people saying all lives matter, blue lives matter, kids' lives matter. What is your and this question is also to Dr. Tillman and Dr. Carter as well. What are your responses to some of those critics that say that Black Lives Matter should focus on all lives because all lives do matter, blue lives matter? What are your some responses to that?
I can go first. I can take that question. When you hear the topic, you hear that phrase, all lives matter. Well, think for many Black people, particularly for the globe, if all lives did matter, then Black people would be included within that same definition. However, how you treat it in society, how you treat it in terms of laws, policies, in the court of law, uh, access to resources, you're not. If you look at the standard of living among African Americans, Black people in the United States and across the globe, you're really at the bottom. I'll give you a great example. Historically, if you look at generational wealth among Black Americans here, it's very similar to the ones during the Reconstruction era, which is literally 2 or 3%. If you look at, for example, I'll give you a great example as well. I remember when President Obama had a policy that said, rising tide lift all boats. That was the term it was giving. But if you analyze Black people's socioeconomic conditions as opposed to other socioeconomic, to other races and ethnic groups, you will probably come to the conclusion that Black folks' boats wouldn't have any motors, any engines, or anything if it risen up to the water. So what you're looking at here is this: is that for Black people, there's a certain set of issues and social economic experiences that they have undergone throughout history and in society today. No one wants to question that other racial and ethnic disparities happen to Asian American, Latino Americans, women in general. However, but for Black people, particularly Black men, women, children, they have undergone a unique experience from slavery to Jim Crow to racism. Pretty much, you're pretty much at the bottom of the barrel in terms of social economic status. In terms of you're the most to be in prison, for example. Black women are in prison at a rate, I would say, yeah, 60,000 in jail. Black men, 900,000. If you look at the dropout rate between Black children for the other children, Black children, both Black boys and girls, their rates are enormous. If you look at the fact of the extent of poverty, yes, you may say that whites are by numbers mostly impoverished. However, when you look at Black folks, I mean, not only they're impoverished, but it's mostly concentrated in particular areas. And also education. So when you say all lives matter, well, we now have to ask the question: do you view Black folks as a part of all lives? And and if you would analyze the condition that Black folks have undergone, then you would have to come to the conclusion that no, Black folks have never been involved in the definition of all lives matter. That's my answer for that one.
Dr. Carter.
Graduate if they don't know what they want to major in. And the sooner they figure out a major, the quicker they
Look at what is it? Okay, when we start to look at this sociologically, and and thank you, Dr. Tillman, for kind of structuring that. One of the things we have to understand is that African Americans are very unique in terms of how we've been positioned within the overall social structure. Again, you can have different ethnic groups to come in and say, well, we were oppressed and we were there, but structurally, looking at the structural oppression within the system that is built in this system, that has continually undermined any accomplishments or any advancements or even the struggle that we've had to even identify ourselves. Forget about the economics. We're getting down here to the basics in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then even in terms of the formulation of personality development. Okay, all of that has somehow been co-opted and stripped to a certain degree from us, and yet we still continue to fight and push for recognition of our humanity. No other group has had to come in and basically fight to say that they were even human. Here we are. Here we stand systemically. I'm saying within the system. And so, we really have to begin to take stock of that. And then continually, when you start to put layers on top of that in terms of housing, education, in terms of economics, that begins to compound. And definitely when we talk about crime on both sides, we often talk about Black men in prison, but Black women actually are entering into the system at a much higher rate than Black men, even though Black men, yes, in terms of numbers per se, but the percentage, the rate at which they're going in, we don't talk about that. I've been talking about it since 1993 when I published Women Prisoners, a Forgotten Population. So I know that's been going on, and then we continue when we talk about the criminal justice system. We continue to leave the sisters out. It's just like say her name, Breonna Taylor. We have to make you say the name. And then you even go back to there are countless other women that don't get the recognition in terms of being victims within this system. So when we hear that, it is the compounding of the systemic oppression that we see within the system, and very succinctly, the criminal justice system.
My next question is for our two young sisters who started their local chapters of Black Lives Matters. What were some of the goals of your local chapters? What did you seek out to accomplish by charging these particular chapters of Black Lives Matters in your local areas?
You can go first since I was first last time.
So personally, my goal with me being a part of the youth of Montgomery was to give the youth of Montgomery more of that voice that we needed. So the public school system in Montgomery is like 99% Black. So with that being said, Black Lives Matter should be ingrained in that public school system, and it should be taught, and it should be like those kids should be taught in the way that they should go. And it's too often that they're not, and that they're not getting the resources and the voices that they need. So that's a part of Black Lives Matter in my eyes, because Black Lives Matter is kind of an umbrella statement of the injustices that we see happening to Black people nationally, internationally, globally, all that type of stuff. And education is a critical part of that. So one of my goals is to enhance education in Montgomery. Another goal is to unify the voice of the youth of Montgomery, because we have the public school kids talking, the private school kids talking, the magnet school kids talking, and nobody is really on the same page. And then another goal is obviously political reform, policy reform, getting our voices into the mayor's office and into our elected officials' offices where they need to be heard so that this legislation can pass, that we need to further improve our living.
So my main goal for getting this ball rolling is to create unity within our Black community. Often we are divided, and there's so many of us that we shouldn't be. And now the conversation has started. And we talk about so much. We talk about everything on social media and what the celebrities are doing. And now let's use those celebrities. Let's use each other. Let's come together, get this conversation started, and let's act on it. Because together we are powerful. And it took starting that conversation, because now that conversation has not stopped, and it's not going to. It took this generation to kind of start taking things a little bit more serious and seeing how real this is. It took it kind of happening to them. It got this far for a reason. It shouldn't have, but it got this far so we can see how far we're about to go. And my biggest goal is to pull in my generation, to pull in those who aren't paying that much attention to what should, what needs their attention. And so now it took somebody of my age to really say, okay, I'm focused on this. We're focused on the things that we think are cool. Well, in my opinion, this is cool. This is all about my people. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was to create unity and pull us all together, because that's all that was needed to make this movement shake. And it's growing.
Thank you. To Dr. Tillman and Dr. Carter, you all have such an integral role here at Tuskegee University. And we hear that Black Lives Matter. So we know that with Black Lives Matter, so do historically Black colleges and universities matter. What do you each think is the role of the historical Black college and university when it comes to promoting issues such as social justice, but also the issues that you both mentioned in your opening statement in regards to institutional and systemic racism?
I'll go ahead and go first. I think, again, as a member of the academy, okay, just our presence, number one, is significant. And we are charged not only with us getting into the academy, but training others, bringing others into the academy. And so for me, the mission for me is to make sure that the door, I've opened the door, but I'm not the only one standing in the room. Okay. So number one is to make sure that we are training young men and women to go further in their education. That's all my department is geared toward. The other thing, as an HBCU, we have at the very core the uplifting and cultivation of our community. I mean, that's what we do. That's why we're here. Our very existence is rooted in the community. That's what we grew out of. That's why you see most HBCUs are placed in Black communities. We're right there, whether it be in an urban setting or a rural setting. We are in the Black community because that's where we sprang. I also think that it is incumbent upon us not to forget that our mission and our focus is on our community, to continue to foster research. There are a lot of people say, oh, research is objective. It doesn't have any color or race. That's a lie. Okay, I'm just going to say it just like that. It's a lie, because we are subjective people. Okay, so it can't be completely objective, because you have to choose what and where you want to study. Okay, so part of that is fed into that. So already, by the fact that we are at HBCU, that we are charged with looking at this community, that even in terms of our research should in some way filter back into the community and with that we serve, as well as the broader, because we don't live in a vacuum. And people forget, whatever affects us at the bottom is going to get to you at the top. And whatever's going on at the top is going to filter right down to me. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we think about it, thinking about this coronavirus has really opened up a lot of inequities, not only in our healthcare system, but in our whole social structure. And one thing that I remind people of, it doesn't matter, COVID don't care whether you black, red, or green. It's not selective about color. Although we say some groups are more prone to getting it, but the reality is that's because of your social engagement, what you're doing. It's not necessarily because somehow that virus is figured out, oh, people with darker complexions, let's get them, because the reality is we're all 99.9% the same. And that difference is not significant even in a court of law. So, we have to understand that. And as HBCUs, we have to be front and center when decisions are being made in terms of whatever area we're in. And that means that we must not only be engaged in our ethnic organization, but we also need to be in the larger organizations, front and center, and not forgetting and reminding them, number one, I'm at HBCU. This is what we do. Many times I'm the only Black person. Sometimes on a lot of these panels, on a lot of things, reviews that I'm doing, I'm the Black person in the room. But one thing, I don't have to say a word. I just walk in. It changes the whole dynamic. And then when I say, I am from an HBCU, some people ask, well, what is that? Because they never heard of it, which is amazing in the academy. But to have to say that at this day and time says a lot. But then they don't. But then you start telling them what you do, and then they start standing back. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I don't know why you don't know it. It's published. That's what we do. And it's creditable. Our work is credible. Not only credible, it's groundbreaking. But sometimes we don't toot our own horn. We're not union. And then I must say this, students, I'm sorry to say this. You go to Auburn and you put your head down from Tuskegee. You put your head up. I remember a very good friend of mine. Every time we would drive into to Auburn or to Montgomery, she would get out of the car, go into those stores, and she said, I'm June Carter, and I am from Tuskegee. And those people would stand back in amazement at the elegance of this woman and her power in speaking. But the way in which she said it with such pride, that it makes me proud. When I go through airports, I have a Tuskegee t-shirt on all the time, and people are always stopping me. That's one institution, no matter, and I've traveled the globe. That's one institution, no matter where you go, they know it. So we should have a certain amount of pride in our institutions, and always, project that when you are going out. I've said enough.
No, please continue.
Yeah.
Well,
Dr.
because Dr.
Um,
Tim.
I concur. I concur with Dr. Carter, and if I can respectfully add on to that, I mean, as a professor, the college professor here at HBCU, being grounded in HBCU, Coppin State, Howard University, um, there's always two roles that the HBCUs play in Black students. One, to shape their minds to serve their communities, not just to be the best of the best in society. And two, as a scholar, use your scholarship to impact society through policies. Those are two major ones. And I can share the first one, shaping the minds of Black students and also non-Black students as well. I get them as well, but shaping the minds of Black students. Many times, my 7th year here teaching at Tuskegee University, I always get students who come into my global history course. They're usually the only Black person in their school. They have been taught nothing about their history or taught nothing about their experience in their schools. So I realize, they come here to HBCUs to get their history and to get their experience. And if they don't get it from here, well, where are they going to get it from? I mean, that's first and foremost. You'd be amazed at how many students have come to me over the years and told me, "Thank you, Dr. Tillman, for teaching me that. I was never taught that in high school. I was never taught that." And it has now, we're living in an era now where we now have college students who have witnessed a lot of things, from the so-called post-racial society to Donald Trump to the march in Charlottesville, where there's a racial and political awakening among them, where it's now splitting out into the streets during marching demonstrations. And many students are looking to get involved. I still have students who no longer attend here email me back asking me, how can I get involved? So that's the first and foremost thing, shaping their minds to serve their community and make a difference, not just being the best of the best and being professional middle class. Second and foremost is using our scholarship to impact society. I'm coming from Baltimore, Maryland. I understand there are lots of conditions that go in Baltimore, just like Chicago and Newark or Houston or whatever. We have a large Black enclave, and a lot of times it's like Dr. Carter says, we can't always be objective because there's politics that's actually molding our research. There's politics molding my research, and I understand here that that type of research help impact policy, and it's difficult to get not only credibility or notoriety, but respect, mostly because you have folks from predominantly white institutions who look down on HBCUs and kind of look down on scholars who have to teach a 4-4 or 5-5 class a semester and serve on lots of boards and still have to try to chunk out research. I mean, and that's the difficulty. So, and let's be honest here, it's not just professors. College students has always helped to shape HBCUs. Again, if the college professors are seen as out of date, you had college students back in the 1960s who had stood up and literally declared, I don't want to be called Negro, I want to be called Black. I want to be called as a Black institution." And they were marked. Even on this campus, I don't want to go into that detail here, particularly with the anti-Vietnam War movement here on the campus, but you had college students who owned Black campuses who made that type of difference. So again, HBCU still is one thing. It's an area where Black students can actually have space to shape who they are as people and to shape their ideas and what they want to do in life and how they want to impact their community. And also as scholars, how we can use our scholarship to help make a difference in society. And I conclude that.
Thank you. My next question is for each of the panelists. We are in the middle of a tumultuous presidential election. And this summer, we lost a great champion of justice, John Lewis. And John Lewis, quote, John Lewis stated, "The vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have." In 2012, 66.6% of African Americans showed up at the polls in the presidential election. In 2016, 59.6% of African Americans voted in the presidential election. In 2012, 48% of Latinos voted in the presidential election. And in 2016, 47.6% of Latinos voted. As you can see, there was a significant decline in African American presidential election participation, excuse me. So as advocates for HBCUs and for Black Lives Matter, how do you all suggest that we increase African American presidential voter participation in the next 3 weeks in regards to our upcoming presidential election?
I can begin that one. I've been watching the presidential debates I've been watching, I always follow politics. I've been watching the presidential debates, the one and then the town hall last night, I guess you can call that, if you want to call it that. And this is something that actually needs to be said. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think that if the let's put it this way. I think that both parties really have to do right by their constituents, particularly since there's no question that African Americans vote 85 to 90% Democrat. And of course, those numbers have declined. It would be good if the Democratic Party would actually do right for Black people, since we have come out in droves, 85 to 90%, and you still, and I don't want to make it political, but you kind of imitate the Republicans a bit with their policies. That has had an enormous effect on Black people. And that really has impacted voter turnout. I mean, I do believe that. Now, I'm a registered voter. I still believe the vote is powerful. But I would like to see some type of strategy or tactics to enforce the Democratic Party to actually do right by their true constituents and actually pass for better legislation. Again, I'll keep it to myself. I'll put it that way. I'll keep it to myself. I'll just put it that way. No, I'm not going to keep it to myself. I find it very disheartening that the presidential candidate you have here did pass the 1994 crime bill. And as a matter of fact, he called it Biden's law. And now this is the choice that they have to vote for. And I can understand, it's funny, it was a young Black male who stood up and asked Joe Biden during his town hall, we heard all these things from the Democratic Party. Why should African Americans vote for you? And I think Joe Biden gave a very typical answer. And I'm thinking to myself, if you really want the turnout that you want, you're gonna have to do better than that. And I'll keep it at that right now for now.
Well, let me chime in here. One thing that I'm getting really tired of the African American community saying, you got to do something for me. It's a political. This is a political arena, and you should, Dr. Tim, you should kind of understand this a little bit better, and the political scientists. But this is a political arena. You need to make your demands. And you need to be, again, you need to be supporting candidates, and not only supporting them, you need to be grooming them. I am sick and tired of us, running up there behind just because somebody says something. You need to be grooming these people and putting them in place. I study the Republican Party and Bernie Sanders. Bernie is good. I hate this. I'm not, campaigning for anybody, but Bernie is good at organizing people. He's good at showing and getting those issues put on the party, whatever party is in charge platform. Okay, this is what you have to do. You have to make right now has been an opportune time for Black people, especially, to again make their demands about what they want and make sure that it is part of the Democratic or even the Republican platform. If they can't put it in the platform, they can't have your vote. Now it's time. You don't ask somebody to do something for you. You tell them. You have power. You just don't realize how much power you have, and you must seize that. Instead of always sitting back and then kowtowing and acquiescing to somebody, well, they said, no. Okay, you want my vote? then you appeal to what I say. And I need to see it in right. I need to see it on your platform. If it's not there, you can't have my vote. And recognize you as an individual. They recognize you as an individual don't just represent yourself. Okay? You represent every circle, every group that you are involved in. So you are important. But if you do not make your demands known, no, and don't expect them to.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I absolutely. Well, I'm sorry, my part, but okay, I absolutely agree. And if I've always felt that you have to earn my vote, and if I always felt that if a party pretend to support the same policy that they do and acquiesce around particularly Black folks' issues, then that's just the way it is. Um, of course, they may not get my vote. And that's the reason why you look. There's also third parties as well. Um, I think one of the problems is that for some reason in society, when we bring up this issue, is if Black voters are to blame, not the political parties itself. And I come to the conclusion that it's not mostly Black voters that are to blame. It's actually the political party itself. And
So
personally, I mean, yeah.
Who makes up the political party? Who makes up the political parties? I mean, let's just get real about it. I don't mean to be antagonistic here, but who are we treat these things as if they're these abstract entities that woo. No, it's a group of people, and those group of people are put in place by us. So let's now say, okay, if you are calling yourself representing and you don't, then I'm taking you out, and I'm gonna put somebody else in there who does represent it. But if you keep sitting around just talking about the party, yes, the party and its platform, and that's because again you're not recognizing your power and speaking up and making sure that your interests are represented on that platform, not just out there in the streets or on some sign.
I like to take the time to chime in for a second here, because I think, and Grace, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Grace and I will have a whole different perspective on this. Listening to the facts that Dr. Samuels, went off on, in those time frames, we didn't really have or were in the position to make a difference at that time because we weren't of age. So now you have this generation, and our generation, I feel like, is on fire right now. And now we do. I think that with the last election, some of us were of age, and I think that for the most of our life, the elections didn't really have a effect on us as individuals. It was more so something that we kind of left to grown-ups per se. And then we've seen, okay, that last election, we failed at that, and now we've seen that effect full-fledged. And now we're like, okay, it's time to pay attention. And I've noticed a huge difference. I would say Tuskegee students alone, we watch the debates together. We are talking about these debates. We are watching this stuff. We are on it. Another thing is the awareness and the facts. We've seen coming up, I'm used to seeing those commercials and I'm so-and-so and I approve this message. But now social media is so prominent. We get actual facts, actual stuff that's happening. And it's like, okay, now it's time to pay attention because this doesn't add up or this isn't right. And so I think that I have a strong feeling that with this election, there will be a drastic change. And on top of that, even a difference in celebrities that we are paying attention to and in our generation, they are speaking out more. The ones that you wouldn't even expect it, I have seen speak out and saying, go vote, go vote, go vote, pushing on it. And so I think that that's what kind of makes our perspective a whole lot different, is that we didn't really have the opportunity that we have now.
Right. I completely agree. And then just to build off of that, I think that for the, I don't even know if it's a small percentage right now, but for the population of our generation that isn't engaged in this voting, in this election, and in the political process in general, that goes like, they're just not educated on it. They just don't know how to have an opinion on it, and they don't know what to look for in a presidential candidate. They don't know what red flags they should look for. They don't know that them voting in the presidential election isn't the only election that they should be voting in. And it goes back to, you should train a child in the way that they should go. Like, we should be teaching high schoolers from their freshman year that, okay, yeah, you can vote in the presidential election, but your state elections and the Congress and the Senate, like, that's what you really need to focus on.
I agree,
love
because
it.
you have a lot of people
I
saying,
love
you have a lot of people saying, and I am so tired of hearing this. Well, my little vote won't make a difference. You're getting a lot of that ignorance, if you will, that we're seeing today, and it's just it's due to the lack of education on how drastic just that one vote and votes, and how much power that one vote has. And it isn't. It's like, just like Dr. Tillman brought up, there's a lot that we are not being taught. I took Dr. Tillman for a couple of classes, and it was a lot of things that he was teaching in it. And I'm like, wow, like, I never heard this, or that's not how they said it. That ain't how this added up. And even like Dr. Harris, and I would say that that's the biggest thing that I can appreciate with coming to Tuskegee University, is that the education here is phenomenal. And what we learn in the history departments and the political science is real fact-based things that were not the same as what we learned in those elementary school books that we came up with. So the lack of education also plays a role. If you recall, and let me know if y'all disagree, most of Trump's voters were uneducated people who knew nothing, who just listened to a whole lot of hoopla and was like, all right, we're going to roll with it. And then you got the people who like, well, I got a stimulus check, or I got this unemployment, so I'm comfortable here. So it is like the people who are not really seeing the bigger picture, and that's, I think that has a huge impact on the percentage of people voting and how these elections are going.
And I guess to reflect on each of your comments, when we look at the election of President Obama, we saw the creation of the Tea Party. And the Tea Party actually came into resistance to a great deal of President Obama's policies. For example, the Affordable Health Care Act, which is the official name, not Obamacare, but we saw resistance. And with that movement, we also saw an increase of what we call Tea Party candidates who went on to serve in, and some are still serving as congressmen and as senators. So, what is the future of, in regards to, you all see, of the Black Lives Matters movement? Is it just per se a movement for protest, but is it forming to the role of to develop, as Dr. Carter talked about, not just policies but policy makers? How do you see the future role of Black Lives Matters to have an impact? Because we all saw the role of the Tea Party in regards to what we would say the political establishment, or in regards to developing political participants as far as congressmen and senators, but also in regards to policy development.
I think
I can take that.
You want to go, Dr.
Go,
Dillon?
go, go.
Well,
Go ahead,
what I
Miss Smith,
have
go
is
ahead.
short. I think that, so everything that people that are involved in this movement are involved in this movement with a purpose. We protest for a purpose. We kneel for a purpose. We walk for a purpose. We're not doing this just to be heard. We're doing this to be heard, and we want to change the system. We want to change this system that was built to never protect us. We want to put something in place. We want genuine change. I think that the future of Black Lives Matter, I think that future Black Lives Matter is to not only to create that change, but to continuously implement that change and keep it in place and hold people accountable for when those changes are made. Not a whole lot of just talk, because we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of kneeling, but we doing it with a purpose, with a goal, and we plan to see that through.
Okay. Oh, it's difficult to say. As a historian, you can't just predict things unless it's documented. So it'd be unfair to judge Black Lives Matter because we have to wait until. Well, it'd be unfair to do it because we have to wait until the movement plays out, and we have to wait. We have to wait out what outcomes will come out of it. What policy will come forth? What kind of policy will it impact? Um, will it create a policy like the Civil Rights Movement did with the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act? We don't know. We have to wait until everything comes out, wait until everything plays out. In terms of running for politics, they are heavily involved in politics. For I heard, I think you go on the website, you got something called Electoral Justice Project, and so they are heavily involved in politics, voter registration as well. In terms of seeing them get elected to office or making changes in policies, and this is just my interpretation, will they get a backlash from conservatives? Maybe so, but they may also get backlash from folks who are very moderate as well in terms, because again, our vision of what freedom is for Black people may not will not be their definition of what freedom is for Black people. And this is when you're going to come up against more backlash if it plays out. But again, that's what I'm saying now. If you really look at our nation and the kind of thing, they're very conservative. Even Democrats are very moderate, and they govern center to the right. So the policies that you see that Black Lives Matter put out is very progressive. But the thing is, okay, will these politicians actually help implement those things? Will you actually gain the power to help implement? I think that's the question that I'm asking myself. But I wouldn't know that until I see everything plays out.
Let me just say this. I am encouraged by what I am seeing by younger people entering into the political arena, as well as the number of the mothers of the victims of crime actually going in and taking their place in the political arena so that they are at the table to make these changes. That is exactly what I'm saying about getting yourself involved and going to the table to make your demands. Not only make those demands, but make sure that you have people in place to ensure that those demands will be met. Okay? Mm-hmm. The Tea Party didn't just come up overnight. They came actually a little bit before Obama. They got politicized and put in place, but understand they were organizing. They were organizing during the Bush administration, and you can thank Newt Gingrich for a lot of that. But one of the things that we have to begin to again recognize, and I'm sitting here just smiling at you young ladies because I'm so happy, so bad that you didn't come in my race and culture class, girl. I would have tore y'all up. But we have to start looking at and feeling encouraged because again, you get it. You understand what this process is about. You understand how to get what it is you want out of the system. My father said you can never change the system by standing on the outside. You got to get in there, understand how the system works, and always be mindful of what your objective is. Never lose sight of what your objective is in terms of why you're getting into this system. That's the reason why you have moments turn into movements, because they don't forget what the actual mission is, what the goal is here. Always keep that in mind as you are in this system and bringing in like-minded people. One of the things that we find out about social movements is that social movements sometimes are comprised of some very strange bedfellows. Okay, you're going to bring in people that you might have not ever thought about joining with, but you have a common goal. And as long as you maintain that common goal and you don't let their goals supersede yours, but you say, if you're going to be a part of this, this is what this is about. If you cannot get in being about this, then you need to go on. This is where we are. Don't lose sight of that, because too many times we have been co-opted, sabotaged, because you got groups coming in and you know, I'll use my example of working, you know, very hard with women's groups and men's groups. I've gone to bat. Let me just tell you, and I love my black men. Love you, love you, love you, love you. But you will at sometimes discard your blackness for being a quote unquote a man and not give me the definition, when the very definition of man is what you were fighting against because you were black. I have a problem with that. Given what you know, and then you then stand up there and we fighting right beside you, and then all of a sudden you're gonna tell me well, you women. Well, wait a minute, I'm just as black as you, experiencing the same thing. And all of a sudden now you're going to tell me to go away. And then the same thing in women's groups. I get caught up in, yes, we're women, yes, and that's the reason why I'm a black female liberationist, because I'm liberated from those thoughts. Because white women have some great friends, white women friends, love them, but they will, again, when back is up against the wall, they're going to push that woman thing aside and say, wait a minute, now I'm white. And you can't do this to me. I am white. And then all of a sudden, here I am. Well, wait a minute, I thought we were women in this. But no, you black. You know, there's a book called All the Women Are White and All the Blacks Are Men, but some of us are brave. Which means that sometimes you got to stand up and really recognize who you are in this with and what the goal is. And again, be very clear about what your intentions and what you want out of it. And again, I see young people are, this group of young people are very active, they're politically motivated, and I'm loving it. Because they're more so active and motivated, more so than my generation. And it's beautiful.
And then just to build off kind of what Ari was saying at the beginning, I think that the future of the movement is going to depend on the pressure that our generation keeps applied and transfers to the generation that we birth. So if we keep pressure applied and we keep, working towards the same goals and we keep developing these seats at these tables, now we're opening doors for generations after us to have seats at the same tables, only to further the discussion.
Thank you. One last question. In June of 2020, the favorable rate for Black Lives Matters throughout the general population was 60%. Now the favorable rate for Black Lives Matters is 52%. What do you all think has contributed to that decline? And how can we maintain that Black Lives Matters is still considered to be a reputable organization and not, as some refer to it as, a terrorist organization?
Yeah, I can tell you. I think it's mostly just propaganda. I mean, it's just literally what it is. And because if you really look at it, is what you're looking at is kind of like a backlash that be happening towards it. I mean, we still live in a nation where they don't view Black women and children as human beings. They really don't. Usually, when you see Black people be killed and they air it on the news media, the first thing they do is they actually find out if the victim the murdered victim has a criminal record, and if they don't, if someone in their family has a criminal record. Now, I can say this: the political discourse changed this summer during COVID-19. You didn't, for example, and I think it came with when Minneapolis really was on fire, particularly the police precincts. You begin to see, the question: will police officers be held accountable? And things of that nature. I mean, so really, what you have here is, but still, you have that propaganda that's actually still there, and you kind of hear about it during this presidential election. But it's always been there for a long time. And they even call what black identity extremists by the FBI, which is very similar to COINTELPRO, which is also propaganda. I think one of the things about it is the only suggestion I can say is for Black Lives Matter is just stay the course and what their modus operandi is, and just stay the course of what their aims, their goals, and strategies. And as long as you stick to your strategy of your tactics of just mobilizing Black people towards your goal and effort, it should not be a problem. I mean, most movements, more very progressive movements, you're going to face that type of propaganda from the opposition. But it's a lot of things, and we only have 2 minutes, and I want to leave it for the rest of the ladies. So.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this in regards to looking how Black Lives Matter is perceived. Again, the clear thing to do is, again, state your goals and your objectives and keep that at the forefront. But the other thing, those who are affiliated with it, that have positions, continue. Don't back down when they say, "Oh, well, that they were trained Marxists." To a certain degree, anybody that studies social movements and activism is a Marxist. Okay, so no, you've studied the how to organize and galvanize social movements, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad they did study, because that means that what they put in place has a better chance of lasting and is more thoroughly thought out, rather than being some spur of the moment event. This is very well organized. And again, these women have been trained. They've held executive positions and community positions where that is exactly what they are charged with doing. I can remember where I was in 2013 when the verdict came out. I'm sitting in Long Island, New York, with my aunt and her husband and his family, and it's a mixed race couple. And all of a sudden we saw the divide in the room, because they couldn't understand why we were so upset and so crushed, because I was literally crushed. And I thought, what am I going to tell my students? What do I tell my nephews? What do I tell my child? And if this can happen, and I can't sit back and just let this happen. A year later, I'm invited to go to Massachusetts to the church group. Little did I know it was a organization. It was a training meeting for Black Lives Matter. Okay, so, and that's the other thing. The groups, you all that are local groups, need to make sure that you are aligned with the national group, the national organization, so that again they know and you know them. Okay, so we've got to maintain this and keep it together, and each one teach one and keep each other uplifted in this, and fight against these negative stereotypes that really are coming blatantly out of ignorance. Okay, what you don't know, you make up. So the thing to do is to, again, stick to the mission and the goals, and keep moving, and don't shrink from being a representative or being a part of this particular movement. And there's so many things, people are looking, well, you know what, I would go out there and march, but I plan on having a political career someday. Well, if you plan on having a political career someday, understand that we're putting people in political office. So then maybe you might want to line up. These are things that, and these are common strategies. It's not, they're not new. where you sit down and you begin to think about retaliation. How am I going to? Is my boss going to see me, and is he going to fire me because I'm with Black Lives Matter? Sometimes you sit back and think, well, can I get on the airplane? I've heard people tell me that they've tried to get on airplanes and flights, and they've been told they had to take their T-shirts off or their shirts off because it had Black Lives Matter on there. That's harassment. Okay, you should not be feeling that way. It should not be allowed. But these are some of the tactics. But you have to stand strong. It's not going to be easy. Oh, I'm sorry. I just talked and took y'all's time.
Well, no worries. No worries. I would like to close with thoughts from our two Black Lives Matters community founders, Mrs. Awania White Smith and Mrs. Kennedy Grace Jackson.
I just want to piggyback off of basically what the two previous panelists spoke on in regards to the perception, because you have to understand the intent. We do have people who have the best intent, and we're angry and we're tearing stuff up or what have it because we built this land, so it's ours to tear up. And then you have the people who are just looting because they just want free things. So, and you also have, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's white people who are doing most of the damage just to make it seem like it is us. So the biggest thing is trying to maintain that and focus on the perception and our intentions on what we're trying to do, and that's really it. And that's the whole thing that I had to think of when I organized my protests. I was worried about the wrong things, certain people showing up and is anybody going to be here? I'll be lucky if I get 7 people, and I got over 100 people. And the biggest thing is all those people were coming with the intention of helping. How can we help? I was overwhelmed of not knowing how to issue out where I could use people. And so with that, it's always focusing on, when it comes to organizing a protest, focusing on who you get in business with, who you partner with, because their intentions and what they're trying to do may not align with your purpose, and it could mess up your perception.
Right. And then I completely agree. And then just to quickly wrap up, I guess, going back to my protest, and when it came to trying to organize that, I think that it's important to understand how important structure is in everything that you do, and making sure that you cross your T's, dot your I's, so that, again, the perception is exactly how you want it to be.
First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you as panelists, and just kind of close with a quote from John Lewis. On November 3rd, let's all go vote and get into some good trouble and help redeem the soul of America. Thank you.
All right, Golden Tigers, take out your cell phones. Now's your chance to support our university from the comfort of your home. It just doesn't get any easier than that. We might not be together in person, but we can sure enough send our support for our students this homecoming. But we can't do it without you. So join our Text to Give campaign this weekend by texting GIVE, HOCO, to 41444.
For Tuskegee University, history is legacy. Just ask the founding curator of Tuskegee's Legacy Museum. Dr. John Till Robinson has been at the helm of the Legacy Museum since 2008 and is credited with continuing the stewardship of some of the most valuable artifacts on the campus. Some have even been here since the late 1800s.
You cannot work on this campus around all of this history. The Tuskegee Airmen Museum, Dr. George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington's home, his legacy.
The Legacy Museum at Tuskegee is home of three very important occurrences in African American history. The Henrietta Lacks exhibit, an exhibit dedicated to the U.S. Public Health Service study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male, also thought of as the Tuskegee experiment, an exhibit that follows the development of the polio vaccine in which Tuskegee played an integral role, and the incredible dioramas depicting all kinds of African American roles in history. While most of it is very painful history, the museum has the dual purpose of keeping and shaping the true narratives of those painful times.
We are concerned about the fair treatment of human beings on this planet, and we are also interested in Tuskegee's cultural history.
In the 1930s and 40s, Tuskegee was all over the map when it came to science and medicine. But by the 1950s, it had been chosen as one of the sites for the mass production and distribution of Henrietta Lacks cells, which would go on to be the building block for many medical discoveries and treatments.
Her cells were used as the alternative host cell source for Jonas Salk's polio vaccine. So you're walking around healthy as a result of Ms. Lacks.
There is an interesting intersection between politics and art. There always has been. That's why senior political science major Nina Hilton has found art to be so intriguing.
Considering that, you know, art is political, and I feel like the means to conserve art and to preserve cultural heritage is something that has been for so long out of our reach as Black people.
That is why it matters who tells our stories.
We have Black curators, but we don't have as much access to art conservation. We don't have as much access to actually preserve these pieces and make sure that there's going to be longevity to them.
To train more brown and Black people in art conservation, Robinson is using decades-old dioramas to help students learn.
These dioramas are connected to every student, every person that touches down on this campus. We must continue this messaging ad infinitum. It never ends.
Here at Tuskegee University, we offer multiple STEM programs such as animal science, mechanical engineering,
chemical engineering, chemistry, biology.
And we're the only HBCU to offer an undergraduate program in aerospace engineering as well.
My friends and me personally, we come together and we talk about how rigorous our curriculum is and how it takes a very focused person to be able to get through it all. And I know because of all these factors that it'll prepare me better for my career field.
With research and development opportunities here as well for being a teacher aide, as well as being able to conduct labs with the teachers themselves, you're more so able to develop a bond with the faculty and staff here at Tuskegee University.
There are many research opportunities available for students on campus. For example, we have groundbreaking research in animal science, healthcare, and agriculture. Opportunities are always being passed down to the students. We have resume workshops. Professors are constantly talking about new and upcoming internships that are available.
Tuskegee has prepared me to compete for any job that I want, thanks to the lab work, classwork, project work, and the exposure at career fair.
Life is more than a journey. It is more than a destination.
Dr. Ruby Perry knows of what she speaks. As the first female dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine at Tuskegee University, this two-time Tuskegee grad is the 7th dean and first African-American woman to lead the college. She is also the first Black female board-certified veterinary radiologist in the American College of Veterinary Radiology. And while the trailblazing first are important, Dr. Perry is focused clearly on her impact today and teaching aspiring students to love her life's profession.
What a loved profession it is. Our legacy and mission are to get the students who are interested in veterinary medicine prepared to be career-ready veterinarians.
And boy, has Tuskegee done that. The university has the distinction of being the only HBCU with a veterinary medicine program that offers the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree, and it's been doing it since 1945.
And I have to do kudos for Tuskegee University College of Veterinary Medicine is because we're #1 as the most diverse school and college of veterinary medicine of the 32 schools and colleges of veterinary medicine in the United States.
Dr. Perry says that for students who have a desire to achieve, her program will get them ready to be leaders in the profession. And they have the wraparound services and compassion to make sure they're successful. It's just the Tuskegee way.
And because we're small, we know students by name. So we can actually go to the students, call them by name and say, you're not your best today. So what's wrong?
Being a veterinarian is a nuanced profession. It's not just about diagnosing and treating household pets. Just like human medicine, it's an industry made up of many areas of expertise.
Animals don't say to you what they're feeling. And it's a science of discovery. So when you go to the doctor and you go to these specialists, it's the same type of specialist in veterinary medicine as well.
There are veterinary researchers, vets in the military, lab animal medicine, and the United States Department of Agriculture, which is the largest employer of vets nationwide.
So that food that you eat, the meat that you go to the store and look at, a veterinarian has inspected that to make sure that it is safe for consumption.
It is an industry that touches many parts of life that we may take for granted. And it's an industry, like many others, that is changing with time and technology.
Telehealth, again, following that same path as with human medicine is telehealth. So that piece has definitely changed.
But for Dean Perry, who is now in her 3rd tour for Tuskegee University, there are some things that should always stay the same.
The relationships that we build along the way, the mentorship, that remains the same, which is a critical piece of your journey in achieving your career goal or just what you want to do in life. So that remains the same. And for an HBCU, I hope that never changes.
This is the hardest working man for historically black colleges and universities, Tom Joyner. Tuskegee has done everything for me. If not for Tuskegee, I wouldn't be here. Looking back, I understand that when you're nurtured in an atmosphere where you're expected to succeed, you probably will, and I bear witness to that.
You let Tuskegee shine through you. It's not me putting my mark on Tuskegee, it's Tuskegee putting its mark on me.
An incredible and a special place, and I think that anyone who comes here feels that almost immediately.
And I have to do kudos for Tuskegee University College of Veterinary Medicine is because we're #1 as the most diverse school and college of veterinary medicine of the 32 schools and colleges of veterinary medicine in the United States.
And my first visit is when I applied, registered, and dropped my deposit to attend. So it just felt like I was supposed to be here.
Just our motto here at Tuskegee, do what we can, life comes, you make changes, you adapt, but we try to meet the needs of our community and then inspire our students through that process that they can come and hopefully replace me one day.
So I believe that Tuskegee is helping prepare me to be able to go out and do great works within preserving my community.
I'll challenge every single HBCU out here in the country and every other predominantly white institution in the country to show me how you have impacted the black community like Tuskegee has. and I promise you, you can't meet me.